Architecture CodeX. If you want to see more, like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe.
Athletes or professional sports teams dream of gold medals and championships. But for stadium operators in the second half of the 20th century, the dream was a covered arena so that weather would never again cause a game to be delayed or canceled. Houston got there first with the Astrodome in 1965 to protect baseball players from the hot Texas sun. But 10 years later, Montreal was in a race to build their own covered stadium. The story is as dramatic as any pennant race or 400-meter hurdles. Step back, and you are about to experience the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. In 1963, the city of Montreal promised to build a covered stadium to attract Major League Baseball. Such a stadium would permit a game in the Great White North during the early spring months and the late fall months, although playing a baseball game in October in Montreal never really turned out to be a problem, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Based on that promise, Major League Baseball granted them an expansion team in 1969. The stadium would not open until 1976, and the dome cover would not be installed until 1987. And even then, it would leak or drop chunks on the field. The stadium was designed by French architect Roger Taillibert to have a retractable roof suspended from the world's tallest inclined tower. The design used a permanent ringed roof with a center opening hosting a Kevlar fabric membrane. That membrane had 43 cables that could pull the roof up and close it like an umbrella. The operation should take about 30 minutes. In the winter, a thermal layer was added manually. When construction began in 1973, Montreal had already been awarded the 1976 Olympics. It was soon apparent they would not be finished in time, and work was split up among many contractors to speed up construction. Regardless, the tower and the retractable roof were not ready in time, but the pool in the base of the tower was, as was the stadium seating, and over 80,000 people attended the opening ceremonies. Moving in after the Olympics were the Canadian Football League's Montreal Alouettes and baseball's Montreal Expos, named after the World Exposition that occurred in 1967, Architecture Codex number 22. The tower and the retractable roof were operational in 1987, and the roof opened a total of 88 times. But so much has changed since the 1976 Olympics. The nature of professional sports, the nature of retractable roofs over stadiums, the nature of O.J. Simpson and Bruce Jenner. And in 1998, a permanent fixed roof was installed. There is talk of restoring the functioning retractable roof, but funding has been delayed a number of times. The retractable covered stadium originated with the Colosseum in ancient Rome in the 1st century. Here too the material was fabric and used ropes to unfurl and retract the awnings. During most of the 20th century, the domed stadia had fixed roofs, and they employed different techniques, including rigid frame and pressure-inflated roofs. Retractable roofs became more feasible, and about 100 have been built around the world. And retractable roofs are, of course, appealing because you can have the event under the sun or the stars at night, and in case of bad weather, you close it, and you prevent the event from ever being canceled. Different methods have been used to cover and uncover the playing field. Most current stadia use some sort of rigid roof sliding on rails, such as 1989's Sky Dome in Toronto, which, by the way, is where the Toronto Blue Jays play, so Major League Baseball can still justify calling it a World Series and not a USA Series. The retractable roofs can be the entire roof or two halves of the roof that move. Miller Park in Milwaukee, since rebranded some other name, has rigid pie-shaped sections that pivot in place to cover the field. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta uses a unique aperture-style roof which closes like the aperture mechanism on a single-lens reflex camera. This stadium opened in 2017, replacing the Georgia Dome, which was a fixed cable-supported fabric dome built in 1992. Fabric domes were very popular because their lightweight material required much less structure to hold them up. But unlike Montreal's fabric dome, none of them were retractable. In 1980, what was once called the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, New York, used a fabric roof that was inflated by increasing the air pressure inside the dome using giant fans. The difference in the air pressure was imperceivable to the football fans under the dome. The dome was replaced recently with a fixed frame that uses cables to support a fabric roof. And so for all the design and construction effort, it appears that stadia have a very short lifespan, perhaps only 30 or 40 years, before they are considered obsolete. Which brings us back to Montreal Stadium. Built in 1976, it is one of the oldest stadiums in current use, albeit underutilized since the Montreal Expos left in 2004 to become the Washington Nationals. While the fan base was strong, the Expos never won a World Series, but the move had a lot more to do with business motives than attendance. The CFL Alouettes left in 1998. The tower is attracting fewer tourists on its own, and some consider the Olympic Stadium a white elephant, a money hole into which Montreal has sunk millions of dollars, and that ultimately has not benefited the city. Some call it the Big O, both for its O-shaped roof plan and the O as in OWE, since the city owes a lot of money building and maintaining it. I am a great believer that all buildings should function and serve an economically viable purpose. But the nature of big stadium financing and the business of sports teams and the demands of elite fans who want luxury boxes so replete with amenities that they barely watch the game have nothing to do with the actual architecture. Those are distractions from its beauty, and that ultimately is the success of Montreal's Olympic Stadium. It is a beautiful building. Interplay between the ground-based open oval stadium below the sloping erect tower creates a dynamic that may even have intuitive sexual overtones. But there is a structural logic to the assembly, even if the curves of both stadium and tower add a sense of organic sensuality. The stadium seating emerges from the ground and swells to its ultimate perimeter and closes in adroitly over the stands, with its ribbed permanent roof around the elliptical opening. The tower sweeps upward from its broad, stable base to its peak above the stadium. Functionally, its height and form are necessary to lift up the thin membrane covering the opening, but aesthetically it gives identity to the stadium, declaring boldly the unique relationship between tower and stadium. Maybe Montreal Olympic Stadium remains unique because it is an artistic but impractical way to have a retractable roof that has been fraught with technical and structural glitches. Maybe this method is just too graceful for its purpose. like a ballet dancer doing pirouettes during a 100-meter dash against Olympic sprinters. Still, it remains a beautiful building. Once again, we see a great building having a midlife crisis and aging poorly as the rest of the world decides whether the art was worth the expense. Perhaps the machinations of professional sports that moved the Expos to Washington, D.C. eliminated the relevance of the building in the eyes of the people of Montreal. Still, with a little effort and a little more affection, the Expos and the stadium could have moved forward together as a unique kind of baseball experience, like seeing the Cubs at Wrigley Field, but with a Montreal flavor. Today's stadiums are inflated shopping malls that promote a money-draining experience, and which I find separates the fan from the game. Sure, eating a hot dog and drinking a beer while watching baseball is fun, but it seems we have the attitude that that must mean eating 9 hot dogs and drinking 9 beers would be even more fun. Big screens and loud pumped-in noises are designed to keep fans with their tick-tock attention spans from getting bored. And if you have ever experienced a long TV timeout, you really get the message that the fans in the stands are merely a prop for a TV show. It's no wonder that the amenities have taken the place of the game as the central focus. But is that really the fault of the architecture? Buildings are designed to serve a purpose, and understandably, purposes change. But there was a futurist nature about the Montreal Olympic Stadium that was invigorating. It said that architecture and baseball were entering a new era, a new destiny, exemplified by the stadium and uniforms that discarded the pinstripe. But this was long before Camden Yards in 1992 introduced a false nostalgia for a retro stadium. Baseball was admitting that its future lay in the past, so perhaps then it's no surprise that its position as the national pastime of both the USA and Canada is in danger. I'm Michael Molinelli. This is Architecture CodeX.